Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Entrepreneurship Matters. My name is Alicia Wilson. I'm Vice President for Economic Development for Johns Hopkins University and Johns Hopkins Health System. And it is my pleasure to invite you to watch one of the tastiest Entrepreneurship Matters yet with two culinary geniuses. I'm going to invite Keyia Yalcin and Jasmine Norton to come on the screen. I'm going to give them, set us all up, give an intro, tell you about their bios, not probably do their bios justice. That's why we're going to talk about their journey, and then have you all understand how to purchase all of those amazing meals that you saw scrolling across your screens for the first couple of minutes of the show. So welcome, Keyia. Welcome, Jasmine. So glad to have you both.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Pleasure. So let me give your bios, which are extensive, but I'm going to try to do them justice, and then we're going to launch right into our conversation. We know that successful entrepreneurs are not built in a day. It takes a lot of grit, long-term commitment, multiple failures to make it happen. And these two women are no different. We started this over a year ago. And every week since then, we have been having amazing conversations with entrepreneurs from across our city and region. And today is no different. And you're going to find out why in just a minute. And we did this at the urging of an amazing young entrepreneur who's now a freshman at Spelman. I always give her good kudos, Camry Moses, who is doing her thing down there at Spelman and just a rock star in so many ways. Brilliant young lady. So let me give their bios right now. First, Keyia Yalcin of Fishnet, graduated from Georgetown University, and as she told me, the HU, Howard University. Her real passion is real estate and restaurants, which she started the Yalcin Group in 2007 with the acquisition of a Washington, D.C. multi-unit and recession on the horizon. It has since grown to include multiple divisions, including development, management, handyman services. And in 2011, when real estate was down, Keyia and her husband opened Fishnet Restaurant. Fishnet took the traditional concept of Turkish street food and fused it with American taste. The fast gourmet seafood eatery, I've eaten there many times. It is very fast and good. Has turned into an exciting concept over the years focused on freshness and quality. Keyia has taught at the University of Baltimore and has been a capstone advisor for Georgetown University for several years. She's also a 10,000 small business graduate cohort. Which cohort, Keyia?
Cohort 5, I believe.
The best cohort, right? and when she's not working, she's homeschooling, a mother of two. She enjoys spending time with her husband, two small girls, and Siberian Husky named Artie as they enjoy urban life in Baltimore City. Thank you, Keyia, so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And Jasmine Norton, present to some and introduce to others. She said from the moment her dad urged her to try an oyster as a child, she's loved them. And as she grew older, she discovered that the majority of restaurants that served oysters, or what were true oyster bars, were extremely sophisticated, requiring certain dining attire. And now she can appreciate that on occasions, having to dress nicely for dinner is wonderful, but sometimes you just want to throw on ripped jeans and sneakers. And it was then that she decided that she would fill the void for people like herself who love and appreciate oysters and all things seafood, but in a more relaxed environment, as well as not just raw. She established the Urban Oyster. If you have not eaten these oysters, you have been missing it. The company is both female and Black owned oyster. The first, let me get this right. The first female and Black owned oyster bar in Maryland. You deserve a round of applause for that. Huge.
That would be the United States.
The United. All right, I'm going to get that edited. The United States. And it's happening here in Baltimore. The Urban Oyster represents various things. It's sort of a movement for those who prefer quality food in a relaxed atmosphere. Wonderful. I love that story of first oyster with your dad. So let's start with telling folks what inspires you to be an entrepreneur, because you both have a love for what you do. but you didn't have to turn it into a business. So what was the spark that sparked you to wanting to become an entrepreneur? And I'll start with you, Jasmine, and then go to Keyia.
Well, for me, I worked in an audiovisual corporation before I became an entrepreneur, and honestly, it just really came down to, one, I like to cook, in my free time and as a hobby, but particularly oysters. I just got tired of my friends and a lot of African Americans. When we would go out, at the end of the week and things like that, it was always like your average dive bar or, a wing spot, or nobody ever wanted to go get oysters. So if I wanted to do that, I had to basically go alone. And so, I started to inquire about what were the reasons that people didn't like oysters, because I had never had that experience because of how young I started eating oysters. And, I wanted to answer some of those, the hesitance and the reluctance behind it. And at first I thought I needed to go to culinary school because I thought I needed to be classically trained and all that good stuff. And so in the short time that I lived and worked in New York, I would go to this event called Smorgasburg, and a lot of the amazing concepts that come out of Smorgasburg, a lot of them were self-taught. And between me starting to hate my job and, being inspired by those people who were actually self-taught chefs, it kind of gave me that urge, to actually go for it and give it a try. So that was really, the lack of fulfillment with my corporate job and working in audiovisual, and then that inspiration from those people who, I didn't realize could really be successful and run a business without all of the, the classic training and school loans behind it.
No, and I think so many people hear your story and resonate with it, because we've had so many people talk about how they saw a void in the marketplace and realized that they could fill that void as an entrepreneur. Beautiful story. How about you, Keyia? What was the fire, that the spark that lit the match that led to you becoming an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny because why I started and why I stayed are two different things. So I'll explain.
Oh, okay. Okay. We'll take both of them.
Yeah.
We'll take both that answer. Yes.
Yeah. So I come from an entrepreneurial family. And I went to Howard, the Mecca, home of the hustle. And so there was just a lot of strong entrepreneurial influence there. I was, selling t-shirts with my little brother when I was like 12, and we didn't sell many t-shirts, but the business cards in college. And so it was always a hustle. There was always something. And really, I leaned in, I see you, Jason. Really, I leaned into entrepreneurship because I learned early on, you can make money, but you can't make time. And, time was the thing that was really important to me. I had, I'm from Baltimore. I'd seen tragedy, experienced tragedy. I knew that, time was kind of the most valuable thing. And so through entrepreneurship, I saw that I could really, control and manage my time. Now, 10 years later, after, all the ups and downs of headaches of entrepreneurship, because basically you are creating your own job, but it is still a job. I stay really because of the example. There's I always have a lot of young people about, 15 to 22 working with me. And, for them to be in a Black owned business, to work it, to run it, to have the autonomy, to see the example, like it really does mean a lot, not just for the staff, but for the customers. And so at this point, it's just, about building something and setting an example, leaving a legacy, and those good things.
That's a great point, because I think that what brings you to entrepreneurship, I'm glad you talked about what keeps you going in it, because we'll get to that a little bit later, but it's not all this straight line, right, and this straight path that you both are on for that. But let me ask you this. So you both have a passion for the substantive work, and you can tell because your food is so good. But what steps did you go through to start your business? So take us back. How did you go from an idea? I'm going to fill a void, Jasmine. Here, you're going to embark upon this journey. How did you literally start? We have folks watching. I know they're taking notes, so I want to make sure that I'll take them as numbers. So you just tell me the story, and I'll want to write it down so I can recap it for everyone watching. So, Jasmine, how did you go from I'm going to embark upon this? What were the things that you did along the way?
Well, the very first thing that I can't go without acknowledging is the conviction. There were so many things that were becoming uncomfortable in my existing career, that were like pushing me. It was almost as if it was to say, like, what else what do you have to lose? You're already uncomfortable. You're already not happy. At the time, I had just found out that I had a large fibroid tumor. It was showing so many signs that life is short. And there was nothing, nothing else that I needed to confirm that, I can't just keep sitting on this idea. But so once I got past the conviction part, a lot of what helped me, was my career working in, the industry that I was working in, because I worked in sales. So I did, I had an basic understanding of managing a P&L, managing a business, because we worked in hotels, and every hotel we worked in was like running your own business. So the first thing I did was I moved back home, because I knew that starting this business, I needed my support system around me. And my mom, she definitely thought I was crazy, for dropping, everything and trying to start my business. She's like, could you please like start a savings and, build it up first? And I'm like, no, because this conviction is nudging me now. And, I just got to do it. So the first thing, that I did, like I said, was I moved home. I started, social media platforms, and, I had some insight on that too, because, I pursued my master's in public relations. So I had that going for me. And the way I started my business was kind of backwards because of me being sick. I had ended up getting a surgery, and I had essentially a C-section. So I was in bed rest for a great deal of when I started my business. So I started my business from a marketing perspective. I would post pictures. My parents would take the photos. My parents would cook the recipes for me. And then I would kind of crawl down the steps in the kitchen and take the pictures and like build up the anticipation so people, could see what was coming. I started following my friends first. So whoever I followed on my personal page, I would just randomly follow them on my social media page. And so once I was able to, be released from recovery from my surgery and everything like that, I met a great network of chefs. If you've ever known, or if you know Chef Cat, she has this group. So Chef Cat started the Chef Alliance. And so against my doctor's will, I went to the chef, meetup, and I met all these great chefs, and, a lot of them, took me beneath their wings, and I was able to have my first launch event at what is now closed, but it was called Truffle Butter Bistro in Towson. And it was a very, very small, quaint place. But we sold it out. And then from there, I'm a very shy person by nature. I'm very quiet and to myself, but it's something about, my business that makes me talk. I function off of the spirit of, closed mouths don't get fed. And so I look at my business like it's my child. And so whatever it is in need of, however I want it to shine in the best light, whatever opportunities I feel, I need to go after, that's what I do. And I still operate like that. And so here we are.
Excellent. I took down 8 points from what you said. I
Oh,
don't
wow.
realize you said 8. I took 8 points down. First of all, you had the conviction to move forward, and really, you needed that conviction because you were doing it while you weren't feeling well, while you were going through surgery, and so I think that's a beautiful concept for everyone to see, that you actually had to make your mind over that this was what you were going to do. Second, I love that you used your P&L background from your experience. So you used your job as a launching pad to understand the business side. Third, I don't blame you. Move back with your parents. I highly recommend. They make it 3 meals a day at them houses. Y'all should go back home. It's a great place to go. But you use that because you recognize you needed the support system. Fourth, you started your social media, utilize your marketing background that you had learned through college and your studies. Fourth, you got your employees, your parents, albeit I bet you didn't pay them, but they were your employees. They were what you paid. You
No,
paid them
I
in
didn't.
love.
I paid them in oysters.
In oyster, that's right. All right, pay them in oysters. Six, you used your family and friends as a part of that social media platform. So really built upon, you did your friends and family around in that way. Seventh, you networked with other chefs. So became a part of a mentorship or a part of a feeding ground. And then um set eighth, you reinvested in the business. You talked about treating it as your child. I call it reinvestment. You put it back into your business. So you nurtured your business as a part of your journey. Think beautiful points that you just made and gems you just dropped with folks. So Keyia, how about you? What I'm going to take down notes for you too. So how did you go from a love of cooking and food to start launching your business?
So Fishnet started 10 years ago, and my husband and I started it. So my husband was our executive chef. I tell many people I'm not a chef. I don't cook. Just call me boss, right? Like I'm the boss lady doing the business stuff in the background.
Okay.
And so he came up with a lot of these really lovely fusions of the Turkish street food, balık ekmek, and he had this like exotic sandwich, and I had the Sunday fish fry, these great traditions from my experience. And so we came up with these recipes, most of them many years ago, through different iterations. This is about the fourth iteration of Fishnet. It was in College Park for 8 years. There was one in DC near Howard for 5 years, which was like a jazz bar. It's pretty hilarious. If you look it up, you'll see all this stuff. It's entertaining to watch now. But this iteration of Fishnet is the one that really kind of resonates with people, and really hits. And my husband has since left the business, but I have a wonderful head chef. I've got my ear to the ground on what people's tastes are, what they want, and just really am driving the business forward into the future. Because that's the other thing people don't tell you about business, is that business is constantly evolving. What people want, what they like, it's changing based on lots of different factors. When I started Fishnet, there wasn't Instagram, like it did not exist, the delivery services did not exist. I remember we had a delivery driver, who would just sit in the back and, literally watch TV, because they hadn't even put, TV on the phones yet. So I mean, business is constantly changing and evolving. And so we just kind of changed with the times. And Alicia, if you want to re-ask me the question, if I just went off on a tangent, because I do, just bring me back.
No, you didn't. You didn't go. You answered it in a lovely way, because I'm going to pull out the points that you
Okay,
made
good.
in your statement. First of all, you got your business partner, which was your husband, and you actually demonstrated what was going to be your role within the business and what was his role, which was he was going to be the chef, but you were going to be chief of operations, CEO, creating all of the infrastructure which will allow for you to do that. So critically important to know the role you're going to play in the business. Second, you talked about your recipes and the development of them. And so you spent a lot of time developing the substance of your business. As you talked about, how are you going to launch? You were really working on the craft, or the product that you're going to launch. Third, you went through an iterative process, where you tried this, tried that, and really tried to, and I don't know if you prepared for the iterative process, but it happened and you went through an iterative process. Fourth, I'll call this market research. You say you keep your ear to the ground on what people want, constantly making sure that you are delivering on what people's expectations are. Fifth, you talked about even preparing to iterate. So you are thinking about like delivery and recipes and how are those systems going to impact your business and how you deliver your craft? So you don't have to do anything else.
Oh, good, great.
You said it all in your question. So I think
Perfect.
that's great, and leads me to a question. And thank you everyone for participating. We have so many questions coming in, so feel free to continue putting the questions on Facebook in the chat. You can also put them if you're in Zoom. I know many of you are listening on the phone like a radio program, so you can text 22333 and type JHUWL in the message, and I'll get all of your questions. I do have them, many of them. So I'm gonna jump to some of them right now. That Howard call out. I got your HU, call out. So let me ask you this. Someone asked, and we have people watching from all over the US. What makes Baltimore seafood culture so unique? So both of you are in the seafood industry. Of course, you're culinary geniuses. I've said that before, but what was it about seafood that made it a part of you? And I know, Jasmine, I'm going to get to you. You also have a world-class burger bar as well. But what makes Baltimore seafood culture so unique? Someone watching from California, they're trying to wonder what's special about Baltimore. So Jasmine, and then Keyia.
I think that what makes it so unique is like we just do it right. Like we have some of the best and just best quality, seafood, coming from restaurants, both Keyia and I's, and a lot of other ones. We take a lot of pride in the seafood that we prepare and where we get it from, where we source it from. And I think it's just, a historic, a traditional, thing that we have just partaken in. I have, like I said, I've been eating oysters since I was 7. Even, I come from a seafood loving family. I think that it's just always, the Chesapeake Bay, luckily we have that at our fingertips. And it's been before all of our times on this call that seafood has been, a great place. A great thing for us to source, from Maryland, from the Eastern Shore, even within the Chesapeake Bay water that still goes along, in the Virginia, region. It's just always been something that we could, it's like, I don't know, avocados to Mexico or something, you know what I mean? Like it's just certain things, you're not going to get it as good as the place that is growing in the best regions, or, being, like I said, growing in the best region. And then the way we prepare, the way we season it. I've been to a lot of places that claim that they have some good seafood. I've been to San Francisco, I've been to Seattle, I've been, to their fish markets and things like that. And I've been to Rhode Island, Providence, Rhode Island. I've been to Boston. I mean, it's okay, but it's just like, it's nothing like the way we prepare them. I don't trust crab cakes anywhere but Baltimore. I'm not even going to say Maryland. I'm going to say Baltimore. I don't trust crab cakes anywhere. And I don't know. I think we just do it right.
Yeah, I think you said it right. We don't trust anybody. Seafood. It was all right. And that is something so special. Keyia, how about you? What do you think? I mean, there's so many reasons why, but somebody's watching, they want to know what makes us so unique.
Yeah, I mean, I think, being so close to the water, we're in a water town, essentially, where people have access to the water, fishing, crabbing, those are a part of the culture. And also, how water people are a little more laid back, right? And so that comes out in the cooking. Cooking is about a perspective. And so our perspective of being on the water, of being a little more, like easygoing, of having access to freshness, all of that comes out in the food. And then we have some like really unique species of seafood. So, we have like rockfish, which is, such a Maryland thing. We have the Maryland blue crab, which Maryland blue crab is like caviar, like it is just a delicacy. If you put it against any crab in the world, I mean, and Jasmine knows this, we're dealing with seafood all the time. Like you put it against any crab in the world, it literally tastes different. It's soft, it's got a sweetness to it. And all of that has to do with the environment, being near the bay, in the bay, off of the Eastern Shore. So all of these things, really come together, the perspective, the water, literally there's something in the water. So
Yeah.
that's
There is
what makes it
something.
different.
No,
Yeah.
both of
Yeah.
you said it so right. There is something in the water, and there's something in the laid back way that we treat our seafood like caviar.
Yeah.
We respect the seafood. We respect the seafood, and both of you. I mean, seriously, you both are just like huge treasures in like just continuing that tradition for our community. So let me ask you this: a couple questions which have come in a number of different ways, which is um what was the first few years of business like for you? So we know where you are now, right? Superstars. But what were those first couple years like? Jasmine, you talked about, being in the house, getting support system. What were those first couple years like? And Keyia, what were they like for both of you?
Jasmine and I have talked about this so many times, like offline. But anyway, go ahead, Jasmine.
I'm stumbling across my words. It certainly was very interesting. It was, and I'm a very transparent person. I always say that, I like for people to know all of the facets of business, especially when I talk to like students, like culinary students, because I never want them to think that everything is always going to be perfect. But it was certainly a lot of ups and downs. I bootstrapped my business to start, so it was all my working capital. That I worked my 9 to 5 for a little while before they started to kind of conflict with one another. And there were things that I didn't know to prepare for. Like I didn't know to prepare for seasonal slowdown. And in the capacity that we opened, that definitely was a factor in my business. We started off in farmers markets and festivals, very much like how we've kind of had to go back to now. And I didn't know to prepare for when the fall and winter came and these things came to a screeching halt. That we should have been putting, some things to the side so that we could sustain through it, or we should have been finding, another stream of revenue like catering, like we, obviously know now. And so that was painful. In all honesty, I didn't have like consistent or like people on payroll because, like you said, Alicia, is my family members, and I've gone through every single family member to help me start my business.
All of them.
All of them, even the ones that might have been a little too young. But so I didn't have that to worry about. But it was just really just taking care of myself. I left my job, and I had a little bit to hold on to, but not a whole winter. So what a lot of people don't know is like I had to sell some things, like my laptop, my TV. Luckily, I was still living with my parents at the time, and then I had to freelance for Pixelated, if you guys know them.
Yeah.
For a while, and luckily, Patrick and I, we met at the startup soiree, and we just hit it off immediately. And when he said it at the time, I was like, "What are you talking about?" Like he's like, I know things are going to slow down. If you ever need some extra cash, just text me, and we'll bring you on board immediately. He knew that I had a photography past because of personal conversations we had, and I was like, "Yeah, Patrick, cool, yeah, that sounds great." Like little did I know that I would ever have to take advantage of that. And so, I freelanced, and then, I would do pop-ups when they were available. Thank goodness that our house existed, because that allowed me to figure out, how to get through the winter and in the fall. But yeah, that was how it started for me, like just a lot of hard lessons.
Yeah, no, I hear through the journey that you get to summarize like all the twists and turns. How about you, Keyia? How were the first couple of years of work or
Yeah,
a
so I
business?
mean, one of the hardest things is to shoot up really fast and come down really fast. Like fast growth can be just as disturbing as slow growth.
Mhm.
And so, when Fishnet started 10 years ago, we were in College Park. We were in, all the magazines, we were all the hype. And so, that was great. But as we, we couldn't necessarily keep up. We didn't have the operation, behind the scenes. I wasn't experienced as, an COO. So it was a hard growth spurt. And then we expanded too quickly. We were the hot thing in town, and all the developers are coming like, hey, I got a space, you should come here. I mean, they always do that. I'm a developer on the side. So it's like, this is what people do, like,
Yeah,
I got a new space, it's going to be awesome. And then they give you these glossy marketing plans. And next thing you know, you're having drinks, you got cigars, you signed $100,000 lease, right? It's just like, and then you're bound to this, and you just don't even know. So I think that there was lots of that, the newness of things, the excitement of things, early on. But then came the reality of things. Like, okay, there's dollars behind all of these decisions. And so I remember we had our DC restaurant, we had College Park, we're losing $15,000 a month, and it's just like, $15,000 a month is horrible. Like, it is life-changing money to be losing, every month. And so it's just, life changed. And eventually I had to, come in like, Richard Gere from Pretty Woman, and like, we're shutting this down, we're shutting that down, we're consolidating, we're taking the best of this, and we're going here. And so it was a lot of like tough decisions. There was a lot of fun. There was a lot of glamour along the way. It was fun, being like, hey, come to my, bar, my jazz bar. And, all that stuff is fun. But there's some, real lessons behind all of this. And there were some, real dollars lost. And you do have to get a seriousness about the business. And not just passion, it can't just be passion and excitement. There has to be a fiscal responsibility, a dedication to marketing, and just a real, focus on the fundamentals of business. So, that's how it started. This is where it is.
No, I think that's really, really helpful. Both of you giving these gems about the early years of the business and the discipline and the lessons learned. And I want to pick up on one point both of you talked about, was the raising of capital for businesses. And we know particularly how difficult it is for Black women to get capital in many instances in Black businesses. So can you talk a little bit about how you've gone about raising funds, and include in that, I would love a little recommendation to the marketplace. Hopefully we have some banks watching, some investors watching, to figure out what would you have wished would have been in place when you were raising capital, and not the customer. We'll get to customers and contracts, but sort of working capital, operational capital. What would you have wished would have been in place? But how did you go about raising capital for the business? Jasmine?
So I think the problem is that it's not that the support from a capital perspective is not there. I think it's this like secret society way of how they disperse this information as far as getting capital. That's the problem, in my opinion. I feel like it's like you really have to be close to, a certain person or a certain group of people to know that these programs exist, because, there is money out there. There are programs out there. And I just feel as if, it's like a secret or something. So I would say, like, let it be known. The same process with like even just, legitimizing a business, to me, is like this cat and mouse game that you have to go through to figure out, where to register your business, and, where to get this particular license or, permit and things like that. And it's just like this cat and mouse game, to me, that's unnecessary. Like, I just feel like there should be a streamlined location or something like that for funding, or, how to upstart a business and things like that. That's a little more easily accessible, and, easy to find. Um, but as far as my business is concerned, we have, in all honesty, are really finally getting to the point where we are raising capital in a more traditional way. All of the ways that we've ever raised capital has been in a way that's like unconventional, whether it be like just like random grants, or you know a lot of it has been us, our actual, revenue from our sales and things like that. So we're getting to the point where, like for instance, our first brick and mortar, we didn't have to get a bank loan because that developer talk, like Keyia speaks about, we were going to go through the bank, to get the loan for the cost of the build out. And because we didn't have a way to show a consistent daily, operation of sales because we were working seasonally, it was going to prove to be hard for us to actually get a loan, and that the bank would trust that we were worthy of whatever capital we needed. So they ended up upfronting the cost for us, and that came with a hefty tag because they tax it very much to make sure that they not only get their money back but a profit from that as well. So, but luckily that, when COVID hit, that was the bullet that we were able to dodge and no longer have to be responsible with. So now here we are again, to the drawing board, with kind of pursuing, the traditional way of obtaining capital. And, the good thing is that we had been able to, have a daily operation between the burger bar and, when we open daily with the Urban Oyster. So we're actually kind of like in that process right now.
No, really helpful to hear about, of sort of not knowing the rules. We've heard that from many entrepreneurs of, the streamlining of the processes, all those things. Keyia, how about you? What would you say was your capital raise? And I know you are a proud grad of the 10KSB program. That's one support. But how would you say you were thought about raising capital?
So, one of the things we did is we worked, we had capital. I had a little capital to invest into this business. I will say that the thing that has underpinned the restaurant all these years is real estate investment. So, while my husband was running the restaurants in years, I was always investing in real estate. And so that really has stabilized the ebbs and flows. Not everyone has access to that, and I realize that, but for me, that was something that really just gave me some leverage and some security to have the business and take some risk along the way. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, I've been denied lots of capital over the years for many different reasons, right? There's so many banks are, supposed to be objective, but it's very subjective. Like you can just deny based off of any number of factors. So, call it gender, call it race, call it, access, it could be any number of things I was denied. But there, the reality is there were times that, I had to send my husband in the room to say the same things, not even as good as I was saying them, for him to get a better response.
No shade to him. No shade.
So, and we've had that conversation where my husband's from Istanbul, Turkey, and, he's like, I wouldn't even have to work as hard as you to get half, and get half as far. So, and, there's a lot of truth to that. And that's just the reality of things. And so I think, yes, you do, as a woman in business, as a Black woman in business, I make sure I can fund myself. I go after capital when I don't need it. Make sure that, I have a savings that's probably 3 times what I need. And just make sure that my business is sustainable. The business has to pay for itself. It has to, pay me. It has to pay everyone on payroll. Everything is accounted for. And if the business doesn't pay for itself, if it can't pay me, nobody's getting paid, right? Like, and that was kind of my attitude when I was in DC, in College Park. I shut everything down, right? Because the business wasn't sustainable, and I wasn't going to let my suppliers, the landlord, everybody make hundreds of thousands of dollars, off of my hard work, if the business couldn't sustain, myself and my family. And so I just think, there has to be some lines in the sand,
Yeah.
with the business, like the business works for you.
No, absolutely. And both of you have talked about, I mean, that was such great points. And both of you in that embedded in that talked about your teams and the work of your teams and how you built your team. And so a question we received on Facebook was, how did you go about building your teams? How did you come to have your employees? Keyia, Jasmine, I come to the farmers market. I don't know if all those people are related to you. I don't think all of them are. But how do you build a team? How have you built the teams around you that allow for you all to deliver such quality work as entrepreneurs? So, Jasmine, how have you done that? And then Keyia?
So I have a very interesting process. A lot of our team and the ones who have been with us a great deal of time, which I'm so proud of, to have a small business, and we can say that we've had some team members that's been with us since the beginning, or have left and came back, or have been with us, for a substantial amount of years. And a couple of our staff members were customers who had a vested interest in us, but outside of a paycheck. They had a vested interest in me, a vested interest in my dream, and they wanted to contribute to it. For instance, my manager Anthony, he was trying to do a blog, and he came up to me at the farmers market a few years ago, and he was like, "Hey, I'm Anthony, and I'm starting this blog, and I've been following your journey, and I saw you guys were here, and then you guys are going to be here next week." And I'm like, this kid really knows like everything we've got going on. And so because he had shown such an interest, in us, and he did, I was just like, hey, like, I really was impressed, that you knew so much about what we had going on, and you knew all the things we had going on. Like, would you be interested in, working with us sometime? And so a lot of our staff come from, that type of introduction, like whether they've had their first oyster with us, or they're showing an interest in that way, or family or friends who know the type of person I am and what I'm looking for to contribute to my business's growth. Because to me, in my business, like, you have to be interested in where we're going. Like, it can't just be about you wanting to have a job and wanting to get, your payout from it. Like, you have to have an interest in what we're doing, within the community, what we're doing, with our customers, because customer service is at priority for me before the food. Because, there are a lot of places that have mediocre food, but they make you feel good. And so you go back for the atmosphere, you go back for the feeling, not because, the steak is amazing. And so that's always first for me, that we're giving, stellar customer service, that we're treating people like we're family, because we are a family-owned business. My mom is my business partner. And so that's how we treat our staff. That's how it resonates to our customers. And so that's at the forefront for me, is that, we treat our customers, like family, because we treat our staff like family. We are a family-owned business, and we don't know any other way to function.
Yeah.
So, like I said, most of our staff have come from family and friends, have come from people who have had vested interest in us, whether it be Anthony, who was trying to start a blog, or Brooke, who was a customer and had our first oyster at a festival that we did. So, very much that way.
Excellent. I love it. And helpful to see how the I love how you said and we treat people like family. We don't know any other way. I love that that what you just said. Keyia, how about you? How did you build your team and thought about building your team?
Yeah, I built my team just a little differently. Like I don't, I've had the experience of working with family and friends, and just kind of have said that that's not a path for me moving forward. But I think at this point I more run it like a coach with a
Sure.
team. And so I definitely have a coach mentality. I will get out there and show you how to do it, but I'm not really interested in being on the field at this point. And if you come to fishnet, like you'll catch me here and there. But really it's about, empowering the team, showing the team, where we're going, what the expectations are, and just empowering them to do it. And one thing that's great about fishnet is that you'll see a lot of young people from Coppin, from Morgan, from the Baltimore School of the Arts. You'll see people from around town, young people really out there running a business. And a lot of times this is just an opportunity that they would not have had. Like, especially a lot of, our youth who just, don't have an opportunity to kind of test their hand at business before
Yeah.
jumping into it themselves. And so, I want to make sure that I'm growing leaders who can help me grow the business, who can eventually, manage their own places and know what the expectations are. I'm trying to, create a system that's duplicatable.
Yeah.
So that's how I run my team.
I love it. I love it. This question has come in a couple of times and it gets to, hold on. Oh, well, we convert. Hold on. Let me get to this question before I go to this marketing question. So Oprah is watching and a number of other investors are watching. So one question is, what can you say for people? How can we support you at different levels? Whatever level we are at in our ability to give and demonstrate our support, but also our patronage. How can people, how should we be supporting using our platforms, using the rooms we're in to influence? What should we all be doing to support and make sure more businesses like yours exist, but are thriving and continue to be sort of part of the fabric of our community? So Jasmine and Keyia, I mean, this is a great opportunity. We do get it every show, but to talk to Oprah and a couple of other people. But tell us, like, what should we be doing at whatever level of give we have, so, or influence we have? Jasmine?
A few of the things that you just touched on, spreading the word, spreading the gospel, sharing about these businesses. We do have a good, strong, support system, but I do feel like sometimes, in our case, we may kind of go, sight unseen, or, so, just going, the distance to, like I said, spread the word, share if you had a great experience, but yeah, a lot of the opportunities, I'm sure, including this one, has been from, someone, speaking my name in a room. And, I'm very grateful for that. And so, to just tell people about us, any opportunities or, capital or funding opportunities that you know of, that, from hearing our story, that you may be able to suggest. And, that is certainly a way to, or if you find a building, because that is very much what we're looking for right now, to put the Urban Oyster. We have been mobile now since July of 2020, when we shut down our brick and mortar in Locust Point. And so because of the support system and the great network we have, we've been, we were afforded the opportunity to work in the Hyatt Regency and at Hotel Revival. But we're very much back on the streets now, and definitely coming to a closing of the season of being out in festivals and farmers markets. So if you see a great building, send that our way too.
Absolutely, absolutely. I hope we have some real estate folks on. Hold on, we do have a real estate person on. Keyia, she's on today. So we got someone. Don't worry. I'll make sure you're both connected. You're both connected. So I'll make sure you're both connected. Keyia, how about you? What's your recommendation for how we can make sure business
Yeah.
like yours survive and thrive in our community?
Well, first of all, follow us on Instagram at eatfishnet. And tell all your friends and their friends too, because word of mouth, and I think in some ways Instagram represents word of mouth.
True.
But word of mouth still travels really quickly.
Mhm.
And so, tell your friends. I also gift cards. Gift cards are a big thing.
Mhm.
They are something that you can do anywhere in the country. You can buy a gift card, give it out to your staff, give it out to your friends in the area. If you're traveling this way, make sure you come and visit from out of town and post. And also to, the investors and private equity out there, if you see an owner that's interesting, that kind of resonates to you, just, reach out to me, reach out to Jasmine, give us a call, sit down and talk with us. I had several years ago a customer who had a JV fund, and one day after just being there all the time, he's like, "Hey, we should talk," and we did talk. And so that those opportunities lead to other opportunities, even if it's not that specific opportunity. At least someone in that community who has a different set of relationships knows what your goals are for the future. So definitely just reach out and talk to owners and entrepreneurs that you find interesting.
Excellent, excellent. I think that's some great advice. And don't worry, we'll spread the word about y'all. It's easy for us to do. So the question that came in that's coming a couple of times, and we have a couple more minutes because I've been so into this conversation, I've let time run out, but I'm gonna get all these questions in. One which is come in a number of different ways are what marketing ad PR techniques do you find most effective to push your brand and business? There's an entrepreneur that's on and that said they've been struggling to grow awareness to their business, but once people know that they're there or about them, they don't have a problem generating sales or enrollment. So I know you both talked about using Instagram and using social media, but are there other techniques that you find most effective to push the brand and awareness? How about
Um,
either one?
so
Jasmine?
at different levels of my business, I've used different tactics just based on what I had the budget for. I will say I'm big on collaboration. Like I love to collaborate. I feel it always shows a sense of camaraderie, a sense of unity. And so I always try to, if it makes sense for my brand, I love to collaborate with others. And so then we get to share each other's platforms in that way. Another thing, as far as like whatever industry you may work in, if there's a person who blogs about it and they have a good following, or people listen to them, or they have a YouTube channel or something like that, you may want to hook up with them. Like recently, I'm not a strong TikToker, but I met this guy who has like thousands and thousands of followers on TikTok, and so now he's our brand ambassador. And so we've had tons of people come to the farmers market like, I follow this guy on TikTok, and he posted your oysters. And so I like to try and leverage our branding and our marketing with other people in their platforms, so food bloggers and things of that nature. We've come to the point now where we have a marketing team that helps to kind of push the narrative for us as well, because now we're trying to establish recognition on a national level as it pertains to our growth. But those are some free things you can offer if you're working with a blogger or something like that. In our case, they get to have free food, you know what I mean, just in exchange for us, them posting our food on their platform. But like, I don't know, if you work in a different industry or something like that, maybe whatever service you offer, you can exchange that for them using their platform to promote your business. So those are the
Free
ways
oysters. Free oysters. I
yeah,
feel like
so
I
those
found my second coming. I feel like I found it. Yes. I love it. I love it. How about you, Keyia? What's your recommendations for that entrepreneur that's asked that question?
Yeah, so in this moment, because the answer to this question changes over time, depending on
Sure.
what technology is out and,
Yeah.
you know, whatever else is happening externally. In this moment, I find that it's Instagram and Facebook. You know, if you have $500, spend it on figuring out how to advertise on Instagram and Facebook and take some decent pictures. And even if you're not a good photographer, the iPhones are so good right now that, you know, they make anyone a decent photographer. So, you know, snap some pictures with your phone, post them. It used to be that likes and followers did not equal dollars. That has changed, right? Likes and followers does equal dollars now. And so that's the best place, in my opinion, to spend your money, especially if you're in a visual business such as retail, restaurants, or any other business that's high on the visuals.
Yeah, I agree with you. Both of you have amazing social media platforms. I want to make sure before time runs out, like I said, I was not great in keeping time. This is a conversation I could keep going on for hours. So let me make sure I give you both the opportunity before I ask my final question to tell people how to get in contact with you, how to support you, how to be able to get eat some of the delicious fare. And Keyia, you have a new sandwich coming out. Is it this today?
Yes, we came out with a new sandwich today. It's called the Real MVP because it is the real MVP. Once you taste it, you'll know what I'm talking about. But
Tell them what's on it. Tell them what's on it. We talked about
so
it. Go ahead.
so when I first had it, I didn't know whether to keep eating it, to cry, to like put it on the menu. I didn't know what to do. But hopefully you'll have that same experience. But it is steak fish, as we lovingly call it here in Baltimore, actually hake, wild hake, fried in a zesty cornmeal batter. Now this is the cornmeal batter that harkens back to our traditional lake trout. It's got cheddar on it, a homemade lemon dill mayo, romaine, and tomato with some hot sauce, which is more flavor than heat. So, I mean, it's got all the things.
They can get it today, right?
You can get it today and you get $2 off for pickup, or if you order online with the code MVP.
You just get, look at the blessing y'all got for watching.
MVP, y'all.
MVP is the promo code. You get $2 off the
$2 off. The real MVP
sandwich.
Yep. I'm going to cash in my $2 right after this.
Yeah, I might cash in my $2 too. I'm doing it today.
It's not on delivery, but just give me an hour.
Give it an hour. Give it 1 hour. We're going to give it an hour. All right. How can people get in contact with you?
They can just email me at info@eatfishnet.com. I'll get right back to you. Yeah, that's the restaurant. They can go to www.eatfishnet.com, order online, see all the things, get in touch with me if you need to. Come to the restaurant. The restaurant's open 6 days a week. So.
And what's the address of the restaurant? Give us that again.
520 Park Avenue inside of Mount Vernon Marketplace. And so you can come in. We're open 11:30 to 8 Tuesday through Sunday, and actually we stay open till 9 on Friday and Saturday. We're closed on Mondays, but we're open all the rest of the time.
Excellent. And how about you, Jasmine? How can we get in contact with you? Give us both the Urban Burger Bar, and we've been talking about seafood, but she has an amazing burger bar. You want to go, and the Urban Oyster. Tell us how we get in contact.
So we are on social media with both. On Instagram is at the Urban Oyster. The Burger Bar is at the Urban Burger Bar. Right now we are completely mobile with the Urban Oyster. We're at the Sunday Farmers Market under 83 on Sunday, 7 a.m. to noon. We also are doing a few more festivals before the season closes out. So that's the one we need the building for, but you can find our website at www.theurbanoyster.com. For the Burger Bar, www.theurbanburgerbar.com. We are open Wednesday through Sunday at 3300 Clipper Mill. We're inside of the Whitehall Market in Hamden. And we also released something that has been crazy, a sweet potato milkshake.
Oh,
and people have been going crazy for that. We try to do a seasonal milkshake as frequent as we can. And so right now it's the sweet potato milkshake and it's bananas.
Yes, it is. I don't know if go on social media and look at that milkshake and tell me if you don't want that milkshake. All right, it has been. I've ran out of time. It has been an absolute pleasure to have both of you, Keyia and Jasmine. First of all, I just am so proud of you and so grateful that we have you
No,
here in
thank you.
Baltimore, and just so excited about the best days that are ahead of you. They're not
Thank you.
behind you; they're completely ahead of you, and they gave us all the ways to support them, to share their message. You can follow them on their social, publicize them after this show, and buy their amazing food. I mean, it really is good. So trust me,
Thank you.
I know food. Let me close us out and then we'll wrap up. We will return next week to feature entrepreneurs in the spices and sauces space. So Arsha Jones of Capital City and Shanier Smith of Spice Living will both be on. Follow us on JH Connects on JHU on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Email jhconnects@jhu.edu. Thank you to our community partners, Johns Hopkins University, Johns Hopkins Health System, Hopkins Local, the Warnock Foundation, the Mayor's Office of Small Minority Women-Owned Business, Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business, and Bloomberg Philanthropies. Thank you, Keyia. Thank you, Jasmine, so much.
Thank
Have a good
you.
one.
Bye-bye.
You too. Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much.